Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. Los Angeles remains, in the main, calm. Mayor Karen Bass has imposed a curfew. This gives police wider authority to maintain order in a 1 square mile area of the city from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. local time. 1 square mile. Los Angeles covers roughly 500 square miles. That is a ratio we should all carefully consider. The Los Angeles police chief said the curfew will address, quote, a concerning escalation in unlawful and dangerous behavior, unquote. Other officials in Los Angeles said today that property damage so far there is in the, quote, millions. The National Guard continues to protect the federal building in downtown. That's the epicenter of protests linked to aggressive immigration raids across the city. About 700 Marines finished a second day of training today. They are not yet on the street. Marine leaders say they may assist in future immigration arrests. For now, the Marines will be focused on crowd control, an atypical mission in an American city. We start tonight with Ed O'Keefe at the White House on the North Lawn. Ed, the control room is going to bring up a map of 12 different cities in America where other protests of one kind or another are now occurring in reaction to immigration enforcement actions. How is the White House regarding that?
Well, they're keeping an eye on those protests, Major, and if things start to look remotely like what went on in Los Angeles over the weekend, don't be surprised if we get word that perhaps military personnel or Guard will be sent in. But it was notable this morning when the Attorney General was here chatting with reporters. I asked her, are you monitoring other cities? Is there the potential for deployments like what we see in LA to go into other cities? And she almost immediately said, well, look, if protests happen and they're peaceful, or if the local police step in right away to try to quell them, we've got no issue with that. And she credited NYPD, for example, up in New York, for how they treated protesters in the streets last night, giving them multiple warnings, then stepping in and either arresting or moving, dispersing crowds that were in areas where they had been told not to be. So no definitive plan to go anywhere else. And then, of course, we know the Texas Governor Greg Abbott is apparently mobilizing Guard to go to San Antonio and potentially other cities in that state. He's doing that on his own without federal assistance, although he appears to be doing it without having checked with the local mayor. But other than that, there is the warning the president gave yesterday that if protesters decide to get out there in the coming days and get violent, don't be surprised if the Guard or the Marines show up. And that was reiterated today by the White House press secretary, saying that they will do that if things get out of hand.
And one of the parts of the drama playing out in Los Angeles, to the degree it's still dramatic, is that the Los Angeles police and the federal authorities who have been deployed there, the National Guard and others, they're just simply not on the same page. They're viewing their mandates differently. This is Jim McDonnell, the Los Angeles police chief. Let's listen.
They have a different mission. They're working in support of the federal agencies that are working with ICE on civil immigration enforcement and criminal immigration enforcement. We're not involved in that. We're involved in protecting the residents of Los Angeles and restoring order to the streets that are impacted.
So that's the local mission, and there is also now the ongoing conflict between the president and the governor of California.
Yeah, and look, that's standard practice across the country. ICE does what it needs to do, what it is decided to do, and doesn't have to, and usually does not, give a heads up to local or state law enforcement that they're doing something, because A, it removes the element of, it would affect the element of surprise if that's what they're after, and B, they're not required to let them know necessarily. So when the LAPD chief says that, that's not out of the norm. It's just obviously very confusing and crowded there right now because you're dealing, as you've pointed out rightly for the last several nights, small area in a big city, a lot of attention going to one spot, and thousands of federal personnel showing up amid local and state law enforcement doing their thing. And yes, then there is what the governor and the president are doing and saying about each other. That address last night by Governor Newsom, not only speaking, of course, to his constituents there in the Golden State, but seemed to be projecting to the rest of the country and the world that what you're seeing here is potentially coming to other parts of the country, and democracy is on the line. And those words initially rang out to Republican critics, especially saying, oh, here we go. The Democrats are going to try to make this about democracy. We've been making it about public safety and law and order. And if they're not concerned about that, so be it. But we are, and we believe that polling and public support will be on our side.
Ed O'Keefe in the North Lawn of the White House, as always. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.